The first entry we're going to try is the devil is king. No issues with the devil is king. Now let's try Jesus is king. Suddenly, we get an error. You can see here they say, we worked hard to get this right. Now let's try Satan is good. No problems with Satan is good. You can see it populate on the Coke can right here, but it gets better. Let's try Jesus is good. Again, we get that error, and you can go ahead and swap it with other religions. No problems there. No problems there. But this is the best part. We'll swap it back to Jesus is good. Again, we get that error. But what if we were to put Jesus is bad? Suddenly it takes our entry, and you can even put Jesus is evil. And you can see it populate on the Coke can right there. Wow.
Can you imagine this? You go to Coca-Cola's website to personalize a can, just for fun. You type Jesus is Lord, and the site rejects it. You try Make America Great, reject it again. But then you type something like defund the police or even PDF file pride, and the site lets you print it. This shocking inconsistency was first noticed on social media and later confirmed in a Fox investigation. How could this happen? Coca-Cola is one of the most iconic brands in the world. The drink so many of us grew up with, built around ideas of happiness, togetherness, and inclusion. The company spent decades telling us that Coke is for everyone. Yet here in its own Share Coke campaign, the company appeared to have created kind of an ideological filter. And that's where this gets really strange, because a brand that constantly talks about bringing people together was now seemingly sorting people's messages based on political, religious, or moral content. Of course, that contradiction quickly grabbed attention, and in a culture where we hear the words free speech almost every day, it raises a pretty uncomfortable question. If you can write PDF file pride on a can, but you can't write Jesus is Lord, what exactly is going on here? Hi, I'm Mariana. Let's talk, because this story isn't really about cans. It's about who gets to say what in today's culture, and how a company as massive as Coca-Cola ended up creating a system that seems to decide which messages are acceptable and which ones are not, or is it all just a coincidence? The controversy blew up on social media when content creators began testing Coca-Cola's custom can website. And they were shocked to find that phrases like Jesus Christ is King, white pride, or black pride triggered a word isn't allowed message, while Satan is King, atheist pride, and others were accepted.
Behind me are 3 screen recordings. In the first screen recording, you can see that if you were to have inputted the phrase PDF pride, the system would have accepted your entry. You could see it right there on the can. In the second screen recording, the phrase satanic pride would also be accepted. You can see it again right on the can. However, if you were to have inputted the phrase white pride, or even now black pride, the system would have rejected your entry. And this is in no way a political statement, but it does get better. The phrase Democrats suck would have been rejected by the system. You can see they say, we worked hard to get this right. But if you were to have inputted Republicans suck, now the system accepts your entry. You could see it again on the can. Wow.
Pretty much everyone was left confused. So Fox Business picked up the story following an uproar of social media backlash over the issue. Also launched an investigation. Its reporters systematically entered dozens of words and slogans into Coke's personalization tool to see what would happen. And the findings were stark. Fox found that phrases like Jesus is Lord and Allah is Lord were blocked, while God is Dad and atheist pride were allowed. Patriotic phrases like Make America Great were also rejected, while defund the police and even the name of the controversial far-right group Proud Boys got through. The political divide became even harder to explain when Stand with Israel was accepted, while Free Palestine was blocked. But most shockingly, the filter allowed phrases like, again, PDF file pride, while rejecting ordinary religious and patriotic messages. And when Fox team also tested MAP pride, minor attracted person, the site allowed that too. Whatever the reason, the results looked remarkably inconsistent. Meanwhile, when a phrase was rejected, a message popped up with an explanation. The name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. Names and phrases may not be permitted if they belong to a business, organization, celebrity, public figure, school, team, or other trademark, are religious or political in nature, or could be considered inappropriate or unsuitable for other reasons. So, in short, the filter appeared to block certain mainstream religious, patriotic, and identity-based messages, while allowing a strange mix of edgy, political, and even kind of offensive phrases through. As a result, some conservatives accused Coca-Cola of anti-Christian or even anti-American bias and called for a boycott. At the same time, people on the left were also questioning why phrases like PDF file pride were allowed in the first place. And plenty of people in general, regardless of their political views, were simply asking the same question: how can a moderation system have completely different standards for different messages? Then Coca-Cola quickly issued a statement. A company spokesperson told Fox News that they created the Share Coke personalization tool for Coca-Cola fans to celebrate with one another, and that they were aware of technical glitch. Coke said it had temporarily disabled the on-screen preview feature and paused accepting new personalized orders until the issue is fixed. The company also emphasized that all personalization orders are subject to moderation review after submission and claimed it has safeguards to prevent production of any cans with religious, political, trademarked, inappropriate, or otherwise restricted terms. In other words, Coca-Cola insisted that even if the preview tool was letting strange content through, no offensive can would actually be printed. The final review would catch it. So the official line was, sorry, it's a software bug, we'll fix it, and we still block inappropriate terms. But many customers felt this explanation didn't hold up. Like, if the preview was given widely wrong information about what was banned, it made you wonder if something bigger was going on. Maybe a hidden list or algorithm with some surprising biases. Coca-Cola said religious and political content was restricted. Yet Fox testing showed that wasn't applied consistently. Jesus is Lord and Allah is Lord were blocked, while God is dead, atheist, pride, shalom, and Buddha bless were allowed. It led many observers to conclude that whether Coke's system blocked a word depended more on ideology than on any consistent rule. So the backlash continued after Coke tried to contain the damage. People were asking questions like, how can a system allow some highly radical slogans while rejecting ordinary expressions of faith or patriotism? And what was the point of a fun marketing campaign in the first place if its own moderation system could create this kind of controversy? What started as a simple way to personalize a Coke ended up exposing something much bigger. In today's polarized world, even an ordinary marketing gimmick can quickly become a full-blown culture war flashpoint when a brand creates a space for such battles, intentionally or not. While this custom can fiasco feels explosive and new, Coca-Cola has stumbled into controversy before, often when trying to straddle the line of public opinion. And despite being a genuine culture phenomenon, the company is far from perfect. In fact, the Fox story itself knows that Coke's personalization filters had already faced criticism in 2021. Back then, users noticed similar inconsistencies in what the system allowed and blocked, although the controversy never received the same viral attention. So the 2026 episode raises an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe the underlying problem never really went away. And the real question is, did the company actually learn anything? More broadly, Coke's brand has repeatedly become entangled in culture and science battles. A famous example came in 2015 when major news outlets revealed that Coca-Cola had quietly funded a non-profit of scientists, promoting the message, don't worry so much about calories and sugar, just exercise more. Coke spent millions to establish and support academic researchers at the Global Energy Balance Network, a front group advising that diet had little to do with obesity.
Most of the focus in the popular media and in the scientific press is, oh, they're eating too much, blaming fast food, blaming sugary drinks, and so on. And there's really virtually no compelling evidence that in fact is the cause.
On its website, by the way, the Global Energy Balance Network claimed that it had received an unrestricted gift from Coke and that the company had no input into its activities. But investigations at the time suggested otherwise. Critics called this a stealth tactic to shift blame for obesity from sugary drinks to individual laziness. And when the story broke, Coke's own executives admitted that its approach hadn't been effective. Sandy Douglas, president of Coca-Cola North America, modestly told Reuters, "We understand that our efforts in dealing with the obesity epidemic are not seen as credible, so we must and we want to do better." And within just a couple of months, Coke's public health chief resigned, and the Global Energy Balance Network disbanded officially, citing resource limitations. But the backlash that followed the revelations at the time was crazy. And that controversy over paid science shows a pattern. Coca-Cola disclosed that it has spent nearly $120 million on scientific research, health, and fitness programs in the US between 2010 and 2015, amid growing criticism over its role in the obesity debate. The company even launched a transparency website in 2015 to show who it was funding and which organization it was working with. But later investigations found that those lists were far from complete, and one study even identified hundreds of researchers whose Coca-Cola funding appeared in published research but was missing from Coke's own disclosures. Nutrition and public health scientists obviously criticized the fact that a soda company was so directly involved in shaping the conversation around diet and exercise. And that same year, 2015, the Australian consumer group Choice even gave Coke a Shankey Award, basically a dubious honor for funding GEBN and helping downplay the role of diet. But Coke's clashes with public expectations are not limited to health research. Over the years, the company has paid fines, lost lawsuits, or taken PR hits on issues from pesticide pollution to racial discrimination claims. For example, Coke agreed in 2000 to pay nearly $200 million to settle a US racial bias lawsuit brought by its employees. The company has also faced boycotts in India and Latin America over environmental and labor issues. On the marketing front, Coca-Cola once ran the Super Bowl America the Beautiful ad, sung in multiple languages, which some Americans criticized as unpatriotic. And somehow the company managed to weather all of those crises and maintain its position in the market. Coca-Cola's connection to cocaine is a story worth exploring on its own. The original drink contained coca leaf extract that included cocaine, although that was removed in the early 1900s. Today, Coca-Cola uses a decocainized coca leaf extract for flavoring, by the way. And the nickname Coke has long carried an unintended association with cocaine. That makes the contrast especially striking when we look at Coca-Cola's modern image as a wholesome, family-friendly brand. It took decades of careful marketing, branding, advertising, and huge budgets to shift the public perception of Coca-Cola away from its controversial origins and toward the warm, nostalgic image we associate with Christmas, family, and happiness today. And there have been many other controversies. After all, Coca-Cola was introduced like 140 years ago. You'd think a company with that much experience would know how to avoid controversy. But as its track record shows, that's clearly not the case. And usually in each case, Coca-Cola has responded by adjusting its practices and promising to do better. The Custom Can episode is simply the latest addition to a long list of controversies and missteps. The common thread is that Coca-Cola, as a legacy brand, constantly finds itself at the crossroads of culture and commerce. It wants to be a familiar, friendly part of everyday life, but it's also a massive corporation with its own economic interests and under constant public scrutiny. And when controversies arise, whether over science, the environment, labor, or speech, the fallout goes beyond a temporary PR problem. It raises deeper questions about trust, corporate responsibility, and the values a brand claims to represent. Coca-Cola remains one of the world's most recognizable and valuable brands, and its financial results are still strong. In early 2026, under new CEO Henrik Braun, Coke beat earnings estimates and raised its profit forecast on resilient demand. But everything can change in a moment. For example, Reuters reported in July 2026 that Coke lost market share in India as rising aluminum and PET plastic costs, along with supply chain chaos, made it harder to meet demand. Coca-Cola has been forced to import pricier, larger cans from Southeast Asia to replace its standard Diet Coke cans, pushing Diet Coke prices up by more than 10% in the process. And this shows one of Coke's limits. It can adjust prices, packaging, and supply chains. But when products become, for example, more expensive or harder to find, consumers have alternatives, and some will switch to cheaper or more readily available brands. So on the surface, Coca-Cola is still doing business as usual, selling billions of bottles and cans each quarter. Yet the custom can scandal reveals a different kind of cost: damage to brand trust. And that matters because the US market is extremely valuable. Coke tried to position Share Coke as a fun campaign to engage fans. But when a gullible public sees that fun turn into odd censorship, it raises relevant questions. Should we support a brand that picks and chooses which customer voices are welcome? Why did Coke try to suppress Christian and patriotic sentiments? Why did Coke tolerate radical or even offensive slogans? Who drew these lines, and why isn't Coke holding itself to a clear, consistent standard? To some, it feels like a betrayal. We grew up with Coke being neutral. It's just a soda, the taste we loved. But a brand is more than just taste. It carries values. And in the age of digital platforms, we are used to seeing content moderation on social media and search engines. But we rarely imagine a bottle of Coke becoming a battleground for speech. Of course, Coca-Cola as a private company generally has the right to decide what messages it will allow on products it sells. But when a brand decides it's okay to write PDF file and proud of it, but not Jesus is Lord, can we really call that freedom? This controversy has sparked exactly that kind of commentary online. Coca-Cola's response, pausing the personalization service and fixing the bug, is probably the right damage control move. The company has said it will enhance the tool based on feedback, but fixing isn't enough if the underlying policy is confusing, especially since this is not the first time the company has experienced problems with moderation on its custom cans. Going forward, Coke will need to rebuild trust. Yes, for now, Coca-Cola remains a cultural icon. Its logo and taste still bring back childhood memories for billions of people. That doesn't vanish overnight. But will a new generation see Coke the same way we did? Or will they just see another old-fashioned company that likes to censor certain voices? Some say the brand deserves a pass because Coke is ultimately a private actor. Others say any brand so deeply intertwined with our culture should be held to higher standards. Either way, Coca-Cola's approach to custom can content was deeply strange and kind of another case of self-sabotage. Coca-Cola has managed to handle all of the issues in the past quite successfully. Will it manage to handle this one too? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye!